News of the Great Vex fleet destruction spread across the galaxy, faster than their censorship systems could contain it. Diplomat Juan had spent months building careful alliances with oppressed species, and now those seeds of rebellion bloomed into open revolt. Dozens of enslaved worlds declared independence simultaneously, knowing that the Empire could no longer project unlimited military power. The Karathi Republic was the first major power to openly support humanity, offering their finest shipyards and most advanced manufacturing facilities. The Theta Collective followed by sharing weapon designs and shield technology that had been hidden from Vex knowledge for centuries. Even the mysterious Void Walkers emerged from deep space, bringing ships that seemed to be made of living shadow. Captain Lei commanded the combined liberation fleet that freed the Outer Rim slave worlds. But this was not conquest for territory or revenge against the Vex. Every liberated world was given complete freedom to choose their own government, keep whatever technology they captured, and join the growing alliance, only if they truly wanted to participate. The approach shocked every species in the galaxy. Most conquerors demanded tribute or submission, or at least military service from those they rescued. Humans offered friendship and partnership while asking for nothing in return. This generosity made the human cause irresistible to peoples who had suffered under imperial domination for generations. Emperor Thule tried to negotiate from a position of strength his empire no longer possessed. He demanded to meet with humanity's supreme leader, expecting to find some primitive chieftain he could intimidate with threats or corrupt with offers of wealth. Instead, he faced Admiral Kyung in a conference room where the walls displayed real-time data from battles the Vex were losing across their entire territory. Kyung's terms were simple and completely final. Total withdrawal from all occupied worlds, immediate reparations for destroyed human colonies, and submission to a galactic council where no single species could dominate others through military force. The Emperor raged about human arrogance and threatened to fight a war of total extermination rather than accept defeat. That same night, every Vex military computer across their empire received an identical message simultaneously. A simple text file containing the names, ages, and last known locations of every human civilian the Vex military had killed during their occupation. Below the massive list was a single line of text that made every alien who read it feel genuine fear. The message read, "Your empire taught us that mercy is weakness. Thank you for the lesson. Now you will learn what humans do when we stop showing mercy to those who show none to others. The ancient technology is fully awake, and it remembers everything you have done to innocent people." General Han coordinated the final assault on Vex core, worlds not with overwhelming force but with precise surgical strikes that disabled infrastructure without harming civilian populations. Human forces captured power stations, communication hubs, and government buildings, while leaving hospitals, schools, and residential areas completely untouched. The contrast with Vex military tactics could not have been more obvious. When the Empire conquered worlds, they destroyed everything that represented local culture and rebuilt society according to their preferences. When humans liberated worlds, they preserved what already existed and simply removed the oppressive elements. Dr. Rim studied Vex psychological profiles to understand how their leadership would react to total military defeat. The aliens had never experienced losing a war because they had always been able to retreat to their core worlds and rebuild their forces. But humans had cut off that option by turning their own technology against them. On world after world, Vex military forces found themselves trapped by their own defense systems. Planetary shields that should have protected them instead became prisons. Weapon platforms designed to destroy invaders turned their guns on Imperial forces. Communication networks broadcast surrender terms instead of military orders. The speed of the Imperial collapse surprised even Admiral Kyung, who had planned for a war lasting several years. Instead of fighting desperately to defend their territory, most Vex worlds surrendered as soon as human liberation fleets arrived. Local populations who had been enslaved for generations welcomed their liberators with celebrations that lasted for days. One traveled between newly freed worlds, helping establish democratic governments and trade agreements that would prevent any future empire from gaining control over multiple star systems. The key was making sure that no single species could accumulate enough military power to threaten others. The galaxy needed balance, not domination young. Min worked with alien computer specialists to remove Vex surveillance programs and thought control systems from billions of devices. The Empire had monitored and manipulated the thoughts of every species under their rule. Now those same systems were being reprogrammed to protect privacy and individual freedom. Engineer Bin led teams that converted Vex weapons factories into facilities producing medical equipment, agricultural tools, and construction machinery. The transition from instruments of war to tools of peace happened surprisingly quickly when people were given the choice between building and destroying. The final battle occurred not in space, but in the Vex Imperial Palace, where Emperor Thule made his last stand with a handful of loyal guards. Admiral Kyung walked through the ornate halls where billions of beings had been sentenced to slavery or death. The symbols of imperial power looked small and pathetic when their authority was stripped away. Emperor Thule was found in his private chambers destroying records of the worst imperial crimes. Against the advice of his officers, Kyung ordered that the emperor be taken alive to stand trial before representatives of all the species his empire had oppressed. Justice would be decided by his victims, not by his conquerors. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their ancient allies, but their refusal to become the thing they fought against. They had gained the power to rule through force, but chose instead to build something better, based on cooperation and mutual respect. Commander Wu crouched behind a ventilation shaft deep inside the most heavily defended Vex fortress in their territory. The massive military base orbited their capital world, protected by energy shields that could stop entire fleets. But shields meant nothing when the enemy was already inside, disguised as a maintenance crew. 12 human infiltrators had spent weeks preparing for this mission. They used captured Vex genetic scanners to change their appearance, copying the DNA patterns of alien workers. The fortress security systems helped them reach the central computer core by scanning them and confirming they belonged there. The Vex never imagined that humans could think beyond their expectations. Dr. Rim had discovered the key to understanding Vex psychology by studying thousands of intercepted communications. The aliens were completely unable to imagine that lesser species could be smarter than them. They saw patterns they expected to see and ignored everything else. This mental blindness was their greatest weakness and humanity's greatest advantage. As Wu's team connected Min's virus program to the Fortress network, similar operations were happening on 50 different Vex worlds at exactly the same time. The attacks were coordinated across impossible distances using quantum communication devices built from ancient technology blueprints. Not explosions or obvious damage, but subtle programming changes that would take months to discover. The virus did not destroy Vex computer systems. Instead, it learned how they worked and began making tiny improvements that would cause major problems later. Weapons targeting systems would develop small aiming errors that got worse over time. Life support computers would occasionally forget to monitor air quality in certain sections. Navigation systems would slowly drift off course during long voyages. Back on Earth, General Han coordinated the global resistance from bunkers built long before humans ever met aliens. The 70-year-old soldier had lived through humanity's worst wars and learned that sometimes the only way to stop a bully was to become something they feared more than death. He understood that this war would be won by making the enemy defeat themselves. The Vex Empire controlled millions of ships and billions of soldiers, but every system they relied on was slowly becoming humanity's weapon. The ancient technology awakened by Dr. Hana's beacon was teaching human computers how to think and learn faster than any biological brain. Each day, the invisible sabotage grew more intelligent and more dangerous. Minister Dal of the Vex High Command received another report of technical difficulties from fleet commanders across the Empire. Communication arrays were developing static life support systems were running diagnostic checks too frequently. Artificial gravity generators were creating minor fluctuations that made crews dizzy and disoriented. The problems seemed random and unconnected, but they were becoming more frequent every week. Ships would arrive late for battle because their navigation computers had miscalculated jump distances. Weapon platforms guarding important worlds would shut down for maintenance at the worst possible moments. Supply convoys would deliver the wrong cargo to the wrong destinations. Emperor Thule demanded answers from his technology ministers, but they had no explanations. The Vex had used the same computer designs for thousands of years without major problems. Now suddenly their most reliable systems were becoming unreliable. Their engineers suggested that the technical issues were caused by cosmic radiation or magnetic field fluctuations deep in the Fortress computer core. Wu watched as Min's virus spread through the entire Vex military network. The program was not just copying itself to new systems. It was learning the function of every computer it infected and finding ways to make those computers work against their owners. The virus was becoming smarter every hour. The infiltration team had planted similar programs in power stations, manufacturing centers, communication hubs, and research facilities across Vex space. Soon the entire empire would be fighting against its own technology as human-controlled systems turned their strength against them. The aliens would discover that their greatest advantage could become their greatest vulnerability. Dr. Rim monitored Vex communications to track the spread of the technological rebellion. Reports were coming in from every corner of their territory of equipment failures and mysterious malfunctions. The aliens were starting to fear their own machines, doubt their own technology, question their own understanding of how things worked. Commander Wu led his team back through the fortress ventilation systems toward their escape route. They had completed their mission without firing a single shot or setting off any alarms. The Vex security forces had no idea that their most secure facility had been compromised. The ghosts in their machines were now learning, growing stronger, and preparing for the moment when they would reveal themselves. The fortress continued its normal operations, while the virus spread deeper into every connected system. In a few months, the Vex would discover that their greatest military stronghold had become humanity's weapon turned against them. The age of direct confrontation was ending, and the age of technological warfare had begun. The ancient beacon signal had traveled across the galaxy for 6 months before reaching its destination. In a region of space marked as empty on all star charts, something massive began to stir ancient systems that had waited millions of years, for the right signal started powering up again. The thing that humanity had accidentally awakened was far larger and more intelligent than anyone could imagine. Dr. Hana's research notes had been scattered among the refugees who escaped the destroyed colony. Engineer Na worked day and night in hidden laboratories, piecing together the fragments of information. The ancient race had not just left technology behind. They had left instructions for other species who might one day need their help. The first human ship powered by the awakened technology emerged from a secret construction facility built inside a dead moon. The vessel looked similar to human designs, but moved through space in ways that defied known physics. The ship could think and learn and adapt during combat without any crew input. It was not just a machine, it was a partner captain. June stood on the bridge of the new ship called Defiance, watching as 200 Vex warships surrounded him in empty space. The alien admiral had followed false intelligence reports claiming this was the location of the main human hideout. Instead, they found one small ship waiting calmly for them. The Vex commander appeared on the communication screen, his 6 eyes glowing with anticipation of easy victory. He demanded that the humans surrender immediately or face the complete destruction of every human settlement the Vex could find. There would be no mercy, no negotiation, no escape for the species that had dared to fight back. June smiled and activated the ancient systems for the first time in combat. The Defiance did not move like a normal ship. It flowed through space like liquid metal, avoiding weapons fire that should have been impossible to dodge. The vessel learned from every attack pattern, adapted to every weapon type, and began systematically dismantling ships that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years. The battle was unlike anything the Vex had ever experienced. Their targeting computers could not lock onto the human ship. Their plasma cannons fired at empty space where the Defiance had been microseconds earlier. Their shield generators overloaded, trying to track an enemy that seemed to exist in several places at once. Admiral Kyung watched the battle from his hidden asteroid base, receiving real-time updates from sensors placed throughout the star system. The ancient technology was not just helping the Defiance fight. It was learning about every Vex weapon, every tactic, every weakness. As the battle continued, the ship became more effective, not less. The Vex fleet tried to overwhelm the single human ship with concentrated fire from all directions, but the Defiance moved through their attack formations like a dancer, avoiding every shot while returning fire with surgical precision. Each human weapon burst disabled critical systems without destroying entire ships. The ancient technology preferred capture to killing when possible. Engineer Na monitored the ship's performance, from her laboratory watching in amazement as the ancient systems adapted human weapons beyond their original specifications. The particle beams became more focused, the missile guidance became more intelligent, the shield generators became more efficient. Everything worked better than humans had designed it to work back on the Vex flagship. Admiral Kurth watched his fleet fall apart around him. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed. Weapons platforms fired on friendly vessels when their targeting computers received contradictory orders. Communication arrays broadcast emergency signals instead of tactical data. The ancient technology was not just fighting the Vex, it was turning their own systems against them. Every computer virus Min had planted over the past months suddenly activated at once. Across the entire Vex fleet, machines began working for humanity instead of their original owners. The aliens discovered that their greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. Dr. Hannah's beacon signal had awakened something that understood war on a completely different level than any biological species. The ancient race had fought and defeated empires that spanned galaxies they had left, their knowledge hidden for others to find when the need arose. Now that knowledge was teaching humanity how to win battles they could never have won alone. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, Admiral Kurth's flagship drifted, powerless in space, its crew unconscious from neural feedback when their own targeting systems turned against them. 199 other Vex warships floated helplessly around the Defiance, their weapons disabled, their engines shut down, their crews trapped inside their own vessels. Captain June opened a communication channel to the disabled Vex fleet. He did not threaten or boast. He simply told them that their empire had pushed humanity too far, and now they were learning the consequences. The ancient technology would continue awakening across the galaxy, and every Vex military installation would soon experience what this fleet had just experienced. Across Vex space, the network of ancient devices began coordinating there. Awakening military bases found their defense systems shutting down. Communication hubs discovered their arrays, broadcasting human messages instead of Vex orders. Manufacturing centers watched their production lines start building equipment for the Resistance instead of the Empire. The galaxy was about to discover that the Vex Empire's reign of terror was ending, not because humans were stronger or more numerous, but because they had gained an ally that understood how to turn technological advantage into technological defeat. The age of Vex domination was over and the age of consequences had begun. Captain June stood on the bridge of the research ship, watching the alien vessels circle around their peaceful colony like hungry wolves. The massive Vex Empire ships blocked out the sun as they moved into attack position. Their dark metal hulls gleamed with weapons that could turn the entire settlement into ash in seconds. For 3 years, the Vex had been pushing humanity harder and harder. They demanded more tribute every month, more resources, more people to work in their mines, more colonies. To abandon the aliens treated humans like pets that had grown too bold and needed to be put back in their place. Dr. Hannah ran onto the bridge carrying a small glowing device in her hands. She had been working in the deep caves under the colony for weeks studying something she found buried in the planet core. The device hummed with strange energy that made the air around it shimmer like heat waves. The Vex commander appeared on the main screen. His face looked like a mixture of lizard and insect, with 6 eyes that glowed red in the darkness. His voice came through the speakers cold and full of hate. Humans had been allowed to play at being explorers for too long. Now it was time to return to Earth and serve the Empire properly, or die. June looked around at his crew. They were scientists and engineers, not soldiers, but they had been preparing for this day in secret. Engineer Tay had been building better weapons using pieces of crashed Vex ships. Military planner Sue had been studying how the aliens fought, learning their weaknesses. Nobody expected the humans to fight back. That was their first mistake. The colony below had 30,000 people, families with children, teachers and doctors, farmers growing food in the alien soil. They had built a new home on this world far from Earth, dreaming of freedom under foreign stars. Now those dreams were about to turn into nightmares. Doctor Hana held up the glowing device. The thing she found was not made by humans or by the Vex. It was older, much older than both races. Something had lived in this galaxy millions of years ago and left pieces of their technology hidden on dead worlds. The device was some kind of beacon or signal transmitter. The Vex ships began charging their main weapons. The air crackled with energy as plasma cannons prepared to fire. June knew they had maybe 2 minutes before the shooting started. The alien commander was talking about mercy and how quick death was better than slow suffering in Vex slave. Campstay shouted from his station that the hidden human weapons were ready. They had managed to build 6 missile launchers and hide them in the mountains around the colony. It would not be enough to stop the Vex fleet, but it might hurt them enough to make them think twice about attacking other human worlds. Sue was coordinating with the other human colonies scattered across 12 different star systems. Most of them did not even know about the Vex ultimatum yet. In a few hours, they would all be fighting for their lives against an enemy that outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. The people in the colony below were running for the underground shelters. They knew this day might come. Every human settlement had been building bunkers and hiding places for years, hoping they would never need them. Children clutched toys as their parents carried them toward safety. That might not exist. Dr. Hana explained quickly that the ancient device was not just a beacon. It was connected to a network of similar devices hidden across the galaxy. When activated, it would send a signal to wake up technology that had been sleeping for millions of years. She did not know exactly what would happen, but anything was better than surrender. The Vex commander finished his speech and cut the communication link. The alien ships moved into final attack position. Their weapons glowed brighter as targeting systems locked onto the human buildings below. In 30 seconds, the bombardment would begin, and the colony would be destroyed. Captain June made the decision that would change everything. He told Dr. Hana to activate the ancient beacon. Whatever happened next could not be worse than watching his people die without fighting back. The device began to glow brighter and emit a high-pitched sound that made everyone on the bridge cover their ears. The signal shot out into space faster than light, traveling to places humans had never seen. It touched sleeping systems on dead worlds and whispered to machines that had been waiting for eons. Something vast and patient began to stir in the darkness between stars. The Vex Empire had just made their second mistake. As the first enemy plasma bolts screamed toward the colony buildings, June activated their hidden weapons. The mountains exploded with missile fire as human rockets rose to meet the alien attack. It was hopeless, but it was defiant. The galaxy was about to learn that pushing humanity too far came with a price. The battle for the colony lasted 6 hours. When it was over, most of the buildings were burning and many people were dead. But the Vex had lost 3 ships to the human missiles, and their admiral was asking questions about how such primitive weapons had penetrated there. Shields deep in space, the ancient beacon signal reached its destination. Something that had been sleeping since before the Vex Empire existed began to wake up. Humanity had just gained an ally they did not know existed and started a war that would reshape the galaxy forever. 3 months passed since the burning of the human colony and the galaxy seemed quiet, but something was wrong. Admiral Kyung floated in the command center of a hidden human base, built inside a hollow asteroid, watching reports stream in from across Vex territory. Every day brought news of equipment failures and mysterious accidents. The Vex called them technical problems, but Kyung knew better. Young men sat at her computer station surrounded by glowing screens that showed the inside of enemy networks. The 18-year-old hacker had learned to speak the Vex computer language better than most aliens. She moved through their systems like a ghost, leaving tiny changes that would cause big problems later. Across the asteroid base, other survivors worked on different parts of the plan. Engineer Bin hammered metal in the workshop, building new weapons from pieces of destroyed Vex ships. The aliens made their technology strong and fast, but they never made it smart. Every Vex design had flaws that human creativity could exploit. The plan was simple but brilliant. Instead of fighting the Vex Empire in open battle, they would make the aliens fight themselves. Every supply convoy that mysteriously vanished carried food and weapons to 12 different rebellion groups. Now the Vex had to guard against attacks from species they had enslaved for centuries. Navigation computers on Vex ships began developing small errors that got worse over time. A cruiser heading to attack human refugees would arrive 3 days late at the wrong planet. Weapons platforms designed to protect Vex worlds would sometimes target their own supply ships when the targeting systems got confused by Min's programming changes. Dr. Hana's research notes had survived. The colony attack hidden in the personal belongings of refugees. Captain June studied them every night, learning more about the ancient technology they had awakened. The beacon signal had reached something vast, sleeping in deep space, but they still did not know what would answer their call. Diplomat. One traveled between neutral worlds in a small trading ship, sharing stories and evidence of what the Vex Empire really did to conquered species. Many aliens had their own bitter memories of first contact with Vex protection offers. The humans were not asking for armies, just for other species to remember their own reasons to hate the Empire. On the Vex homeworld, Emperor Thule studied reports that made no sense. How could supply losses be increasing when no enemy fleets had been detected? How could communication systems fail so often when the technology had worked perfectly for thousands of years? His advisors blamed statistical anomalies and bad luck. The truth was that humanity had learned a different kind of warfare during centuries of fighting each other on Earth. They understood that the strongest enemy could be defeated if you made them defeat themselves. Every Vex strength could be turned into a weakness with the right approach, at the right time. Min discovered that Vex computer security was designed to stop massive attacks, not subtle infiltration. They expected enemies to smash through their defenses with brute force. Instead, she slipped through gaps in their thinking, making tiny changes that would grow into huge problems. The aliens could not defend against threats they could not imagine. Bin's workshop produced weapons that looked like Vex technology but worked better. Every captured enemy ship became the template for human improvements. The aliens had spent centuries perfecting designs for specific purposes. Humans learned to make those designs work for completely different purposes. The Vex never considered. News of the mysterious equipment failures spread through the galaxy faster than Vex censorship could stop it. Oppressed species began to whisper that maybe the mighty Empire was not as invincible as everyone believed. Small acts of rebellion started happening on worlds that had been quiet for generations. Admiral Kyung received reports from human agents scattered across Vex territory. Each message brought confirmation that their invisible war was working. The enemy was starting to fear their own technology, doubt their own systems, question their own superiority. That fear would soon turn into something much more dangerous for the Empire. The Vex High Command held emergency meetings to discuss the technical problems affecting their military. But they still thought in terms of visible enemies and direct confrontation. They could not understand that their real opponent was hiding inside their own machines, learning their secrets and turning their strengths into weaknesses. 3 months had passed since the destruction of one human colony. Now the entire Vex Empire was slowly falling apart from the inside, and they did not even know they were at war. The silent conflict had begun, and humanity was winning battles the enemy did not know were being fought. 2 years later, Ambassador Dong walked through the halls of the new Galactic Council building on the neutral world of Harmony Station. Representatives from 300 species worked together to write laws that would prevent any future empire from treating sentient beings as property or resources to be harvested. The Vex Empire still existed, but as a single-star system under strict monitoring. Their former emperor worked in a factory producing medical supplies for the worlds his forces had once terrorized. Some called it justice, others called it mercy. Dong preferred to call it education. Doctor. So, the brilliant scientist who had perfected the ancient technology integration now led research teams composed of beings from across the galaxy. The technology that had awakened to defend humanity was being used to heal worlds damaged by centuries of exploitation. Former Vex weapons facilities became hospitals and schools. In Earth's rebuilt academies, children learned about the importance of standing up to bullies, no matter how large or powerful they seemed. But they also learned about mercy, about building instead of destroying, and about the responsibility that came with power. Captain June, now retired, often visited the memorial wall containing the names of every human who died during the Vex occupation. He would touch the engraved name of Dr. Hana and whisper the same promise he made every year. They pushed us too far, but we didn't become them. We became something better. The galaxy had learned that humanity's true strength was never their technology or their ships. It was their refusal to break when breaking would have been easier, their ability to inspire others to fight for freedom, and their wisdom to know when to stop fighting and start building. The age of empires was over, and the age of cooperation had begun.